Welcome to the MTA podcast. I am Chris Mader, and every founder out there eventually faces the same question. Do I scale or do I sell? And my guest today has lived both sides of that decision, 3 exits, 25 years of building, in a mission to help owners in the $1 to $50 million range navigate this decision without needing private equity firm to do it all. He's a principal of a founding team member at Top Line Operators, David Hori. David, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here and have this conversation today.
Chris, I can't believe that we have this time together, and I am really excited as well.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. This is great. So you and I have one thing in common, ICP, ideal client profile. I typically serve maybe 10 to 30 million, give or take, and you're in that 1 to 50. And just talk to me about why that's such a great client profile for, guys like you to work with. Let's start there.
Yeah, so the data shows that there are very few business owners that actually make it beyond the $10 million revenue threshold. Why is that? And it's not from lack of trying or effort or even the opportunity, the market opportunity. It really comes down to not having the right playbook. And there is nothing more satisfying to me than working with business owners who are action oriented and motivated to make massive change in their business and helping them to break through that and setting them on a higher trajectory. And at that $1 million mark, that's still not, insignificant. There's a lot of businesses that will never get to $1 million in revenue. But when you hit that and you're like, there's more out there for me, I want to work with you and I want to help you achieve that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because like Dan Martell as a coach talks about add a zero to it. So you think about a founder that's doing $1 million, and to your point, like that's an amazing accomplishment to start a business from scratch, do $1 million. As a coach, Dan Martell will say, add a zero to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just forces you to think differently about your metrics, your people, like just makes you think differently about all of the things. Because to your point, going from 1 million to 10 million is absolutely possible. People do it all the time. Incredibly difficult, but you need a coach or a process or a system to kind of help you get there for sure. Right. And tell me about lessons, 3 times over. Like I guess I'll say, take me back. So 20, 25 years ago, you've had a number of exits, including a Toyota acquisition with Camaro. How did you actually get into the work of, navigating these exits and doing what you're doing today?
So, yeah, the part of building and scaling primarily VC funded startups actually is within the last 10 years of my professional career. And I was coming out of big corporates, and the big learning there was just that I was working in these world-class organizations, enterprise level organizations that had global reach and impact, which is really exciting, but they were slow. They weren't particularly innovative. And I found, wow, that is something that's really, really important to me. How do I get to places where innovation and agility and speed, pure throughput is highly valued? And God opened a door for me to walk into a VC funded startup that had A16Z as a lead investor. Ben Horowitz actually was a personal mentor to the CEO and on our board. So I got to meet him. And I had no idea, like I'd never heard of any of those companies, any of those individuals. So I had no idea just how rich I had landed in the world of VC funded startups. And that was my first taste and I was hooked, right? I'm also a slow learner. So it took me 3 startups to realize, wow, I think what I really like about building is being able to set the direction, set that North Star, and build towards it myself. And so it wasn't until Camaro was acquired by Toyota and I got to help transition, a US-based company to Japan-based company, all those cool things where I thought, wait a second, I think I want to do this for myself. And that brings us to the last 3 years.
Yeah, we have such a similar origin story like that. I was in corporate America 27 years. The company went from 30 million to 1.4 billion. I'll tell you the day I thought I wanted to leave. I want to mirror your story. We used to be very nimble, right? We moved very quickly, good idea, execution. I gave my boss, his name was Bob, an idea in November of whatever year it was November. And then it just kind of disappeared. And honest to God, Dave, it was a year later. And Bob goes, hey, Chris, by the way, we're rolling that out. I go, rolling what out? He's like, that idea you gave me like a year ago. I'm like, dude, it took a year. And you think about companies doing $1 million. If you and I have a good idea today, we're executing tomorrow, maybe this afternoon. Yeah. So talk to me about upsides, downsides to that. Like
Mhm.
the beauty of having autonomy to move quickly versus the big corporates. It moves slow. They have systems and processes, lots of good things there too. But like it takes time to make decisions. Just give me, some experiences or stories you can talk to listeners about why they're good and why they're bad.
Yeah. So one of the first companies that I worked with in a corporate sense was the global law firm owned by Bill Gates Sr., K&L Gates.
Okay.
And similar to you, when I had an idea, I was working with incredibly brilliant people. And it wasn't that my ideas weren't acknowledged as being good or different or innovative. But the first question was, are any of the other big law firms doing it? And that just killed me. It crushed me, right? And they were waiting for validation. They didn't want to be the first to move to market or the first to move on an idea. And my whole mindset was, hopefully they're not, because if they are, we're going to win big. We're going to win even bigger. And so again, there's pros and cons. They're very well resourced. And that gave me my first exposure to M&A. K&L Gates was growing really rapidly through acquisition. And we acquired, actually, I think it was 5 or 6 law firms that were Australian based and put Australia on the map. So I got to help with some of that integration work, and that gave me a taste for, again, M&A work that I continue to have a love for today. But again, it really helped clarify how important innovation was for me. And then on the flip side, I think, the founder, maybe entrepreneur curse is, when you have total optionality and the ability to pivot very quickly, is the shiny object syndrome, which everyone's familiar with. And that is a true challenge to help a founder navigate through and be successful despite them having enough ideas to completely sink the battleship.
So as an expert in this area, I can't wait to hear the answer to this question. So that is a very typical prototype or archetype, I should
Mhm.
say, of people that we work with and you work with. When you find a founder that's like that, how do you get them to change? What's your Jedi mind trick, your psychological, like, what is the process where you take a founder through that they might be part of the problem? And obviously they're part of the solution, but how do you get them to change?
Ben Horowitz is, I think, famous for talking about how everybody's looking for a silver bullet and there are only lead bullets. So I don't know that I have the magic pill, so to speak, or the silver bullet for that. And I've worked with founders that, was successful in helping them change, and others that completely ineffective.
Right.
And it was actually, a sheer forcing function that enabled them to kind of have to focus their attention in a very clear manner for survival's sake, right? That was the forcing function. But one of the things is establishing trust with them early and demonstrating the power of that focus. Like, let's frame this as an experiment, founder. We're going to experiment with just giving the team this one objective to focus their energy, resources, problem solving capabilities on for 6 weeks. And let's just see what happens. Like let's table these other things. We're not going to say they're not important or we're not going to ever get to them, but we're going to give the team the gift of that focus, and let's see what happens and the results. And if you decide this is a massive mistake, like, well, then that's on me. But we learned. Giving them the thin edge of the wedge has been one of the most effective ways.
I like that. That's good. Yeah. I've the analogy, I don't even know analogy metaphor. I say the bottle of Advil. Let's just try one thing. Let's not take the whole bottle. Let's just try this one thing and give it a month or two and we'll see what happens. And if we have to course correct or make the adjustment, we can do that, right? But I like that approach. So I like that. What what are things that you see? Again, most of my audience are revenue generation leaders, CEOs, owners, business
Mhm.
founders. I'm curious, like the things that most of these people underestimate early on, like in building a business. You've had an experience to build business yourself. You help and coach and advise others to do it. What are the most common scenarios, use cases you see that people underestimate when they're building the business in that 1 to 3 to 5+ million range? What are they?
There's two things that I would highlight. The first being founders and owners chronically underestimate the dependency of the business on them to achieve sales, marketing, their reputation. deals are done with vendors, clients, all of that because of, your network, those kinds of things. And you'll talk to an owner that says, oh, I probably work 20 to 30 hours a week in the business. And you know that it would take, two people 60-hour weeks to replicate what they're doing in the business, plus all of their industry know-how and those kinds of things. So that's one mistake, is just like kind of overestimating like how little you're contributing to your business and how dependent the business is on you. The second, though, is I think less obvious, because I see people chasing revenue as a metric. And one of the things I'm constantly highlighting is not all revenue is positive. And people say, how can more money be bad? And I'll just highlight just briefly, within the last month, meeting with a business owner who had, a product line that people like, the customers like it, and it's growing in revenue. And I looked at it and I said, Jeff, you have to, in the next week, either figure out a way to 3x this, the revenue related to this, or you have to cut it next week. There is no middle ground. There is no reason to keep this, because it requires a full-time employee, time, resources, and energy to run it. It's not even paying for itself, and is just taking up space on your website. Like, it's not good for your business. And so not all revenue being positive, I think, is another one.
That's awesome. It's funny that we had a chat a week or two ago leading up to our call today and recording, and we have a lot in common here. I say revenue is a vanity metric.
I'm going to steal that. I like that. That's better.
Steal- And I don't know where I taught it, but now you know it. And it's about gross profit dollars and
Mhm.
comparing how much gross profit versus the cost and what's the EBITDA line. But like, I just learned that gross profit dollars was far more important than the revenue, right? And so I think, I mean, your answer's spot on. I definitely find those two scenarios are extremely common. And anybody listening, right? I call it, but the bottleneck. Scenario one is don't be the bottleneck. Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to be the hero all the time, right? So that's awesome.
100%.
You've built companies for exits, and one of the common questions I get when I do an intake call with a new client, right? Hey, Chris, I'm doing 6 million. I want to do 50. I want to do 100. And one of the things there's a book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, start with the end in mind. You know, People want to get from 6 to 50 million, let's say. Where do where do owners get stuck on that? Like what prohibits them scaling to an exit? You've had three successful exits, you've helped other people exit. Like in your experience, I guess the question is like what breaks for people when they're trying to get from that $6 to $50 million number? Like what starts to break? Is it people? Is it process? Is it technology? Like or anything else you think it is? I'm curious.
There's a lot of different things that break, but if we zoom out a little bit, the meta takeaway is that the playbook that got you to 5 or 6 million is not going to get you to 50 million. You need an entirely new playbook. And I think owners get into this process where things stabilize and then they go into optimization mode and they're seeing incremental benefit and improvement, but you cannot optimize your way to a $50 million revenue threshold. And so one of the things that I see actually break the first is the team's capabilities, right? You have these people that were probably really loyal to you, have done a great job creating value in your business, and you want to be loyal to them if you're a good business owner. And that's well-intentioned but misguided, right? That's anecdotal kind of advice that you'll get being loyal to these employees. If they can't deliver the outcomes that your business needs to get to the next level, it is actually not kind to keep them on board in that position. Maybe there's a different role that they can continue to function in, but keeping them just because they were the ones that got you to 6 million is, again, misguided advice that I think is very popular and in vogue right now. So
That's such a great call. I can't wait to hear them more, but I just want to support that. That is definitely something I see all the time. People hanging on too long of people that got them to six, that won't get them to 50. They want to be loyal. What do we do with this person? I just want to reinforce. It's such a great point. But what else do you have? Great.
Well, I mean, just double clicking on that a little bit. That is such an insidious seed to have planted in your organization, because then your top performers start to resent you and leave. And then it actually prevents you from attracting the kind of people as you start to hire that can actually get you there. And so it actually is a self-limiting and self-sabotaging practice that will ensure you never get there, even though your heart's probably in a really positive place. And again, best intentioned, but poor advice to build a business around. And then I think again, just the mindset of the owner. It's a different playbook. I keep saying, you know, you need a different playbook, but the unspoken side of that is you have to be willing and committed to losing sight of everything that's familiar, the way you've always done things. You know, even some of the clients that you've loved working with might not be the ones that continue to support the trajectory you need to be on. So losing sight of the familiar for a long time and building without seeing the instant results and gratification that are like, yeah, we made the right call is another one that a lot of people get hung up on.
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, there's going to be so many good 60-second clips from our chat today, but and the whole 40-minute clip's going to be great. But like as founders, we're only 10 or 20 minutes in. You get to listen back to the first 20 minutes. It's so good because you said this earlier, and I want to reinforce a couple of things you said. You said it earlier in the show. Business has phases: small, small, mid, big, etc. And it's just phases of change. And to your point, when somebody helps you get to 6 million, that's small, small, mid. Sometimes they don't have the cognitive ability, the skill set to get you to 10, 50, whatever the number is, right? And so it's not like they're a bad human being and you appreciate everything they did for you. But my old boss, Bob, I talk about all the time. He has a face. Good job doing your job. That's why I paid your salary. I have owners come to me and say, Chris, like I've been paying this guy for 6 years and he's been doing it. I'm like, yeah, but you paid him. Like you've already paid him for
Yeah.
that, you know? And so you don't owe him any. Now, the other thing I will say, there's a gentleman I met. I can't remember his last name, Luck. He owns a number of restaurant chains in the New Jersey area. I'll put him in the show notes. But he had a cool way to look at this, David, and steal this too, because I stole from Luck. He called it airline miles. He goes, my loyal people over years have built up a bunch of airline miles. But if they're not performing for anymore, they're starting to deduct airline miles. And at some point, that account can go to zero. And so as much as I appreciate what they built for me, like I'll give them a little more time, but if they can't make the adjustment, I have to have that difficult conversation that maybe, they're just not the right person, right seat. I'm an EOS guy, EOS style person.
Yep.
You say right person, right seat exercise. Like maybe you're no longer the right person in the right seat. And it's
100%.
how do you help founders have that conversation? Like, how do you, I'm curious if you were coaching me, you're coaching, people on the phone, they want to have this conversation. Like, you don't have to role play it, but like, what are the things you say to them to help them navigate that?
Well, one of the most surprising reactions that I've had in having these conversations with individuals is often they know it. There's relief, actually. Okay, now it's in the open. Now we're naming it. We found it. We faced it. There's relief for that person because often they know that they're holding people back or, the team is struggling because they're not, again, delivering those outcomes. But for anybody that will double down and say, wait, I heard Chris and David talk about this and I'm never going to stoop to that level of firing somebody that's loyal to me. Let me reframe that. What if you could actually support them in finding a role and an opportunity outside of your organization that would be tremendously engaging for them and leverage their specific expertise in a much more impactful way? You could. You absolutely could. You could call up a competitor and say, hey, my GM has been tremendous in getting me to the next level, and where we're headed, like they're not able to follow, but they probably have a lot of things that you would be brilliant in your business. And it doesn't have to be a competitor. It could be in a different industry if you're worried about your competitors, but you could support them landing well and helping to make introductions and help them transition that. And at the same time, be very transparent. Like there is a date where we are going to transition things. We are going to start, identifying people that can deliver the outcomes we need. We would love your involvement in that. And we're going to be 100% supportive of you finding something that you're really excited about and you're going to be knock it out of the park with. And that is a tremendously, I think, positive way to move towards that same objective.
Very aligned to what you just said. I think that's awesome. Yeah, there's a way to have that conversation with humility and ultimately, to your point, David. I mean, even though it's a hard conversation to have, I believe what you're saying. I think most owners find relief in that, and they okay, I had the conversation. Didn't go as bad as I thought it would typically. But I always tell them too, like, hey, David, a year from now, that person's going to land somewhere else. They're going to be happier. Like it's going to be a ride, and they're going to be sad and upset, and maybe it's hard feelings, but promise you, 12 months from now, they're going to look back and like they are going to be happier. You know, they may not be happy with you, but they're going to be happy. And it's the right thing to do. It's right. It's the right thing to do, to your point, to protect your culture, the standard you're setting, et cetera. Because otherwise you're not going to attract the talent you want. So
Yeah. What are you saying yes to is another way to help them think through it. It's like, I'm sure that there's frustration in your team right now of carrying the extra weight or whatever that is. Like, you're saying yes to taking care of those top performers. So a lot of different ways to
that's so
slice it.
good. So good. I want to come back to, so the vast majority of the people that would listen want to exit, but they're not going to exit tomorrow. And so they're building their business. What are the things, like, what does a business look like that's sellable? Like, what are the things people should be thinking about now that 5 years from now is going to help them? Because again, it's a EOS framework. We talk about like 5-year goal, 10-year vision, all those things. And you kind of have a North Star you're going towards. What are the levers, before a banker, an investor, a PE firm, whoever is walks in, like, what are the things that makes a business actually sellable and valuable?
Yeah. Well, I say this time and again. Business owners should build a business that they could sell tomorrow and then keep it as long as you want to. Because building a sellable business is just building a good business, right? It's one that doesn't depend on you. It's one that has predictable financial, results. It's one that doesn't have any kind of concentration issues. That's, like all of your business hinges on this key vendor or one single client or small cluster of clients, those kinds of concentration risks. It doesn't depend on a magic unicorn GM that runs your business and nobody can run it like them. And if they walked, you would just be floundering. And then there's the systems and processes, the degree that is documented. Those 5 pillars are the things that are going to drive a valuable business, a resilient business, and ultimately one that can be either invested in or sold.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if Dan Martell said it. I don't know who said it, but they always say, to your point, like, even if you're a solopreneur enjoying like freedom and autonomy, always build your business as if you're going to sell it, even though you're not. You may not, right? You might do it 20 years and just
Yeah.
maybe it goes away, or you give it to your kids. Who knows,
Yeah.
right? But that's such good advice. It's spot on. Any deals that you've ever been involved in that, like, maybe near the 11th hour they fell apart, and you were like, "Wow, I thought this for sure was going to happen." And again, without breaching confidentiality, like, tell me a story, fake names, real names, whatever. It'll be really interesting, I think, for people to hear, like, why deals fall apart.
How long do we have?
I know. I told you I could talk to you for 2 hours.
I'll highlight 2 quick ones. One that I still considered, being the one that got away. I went after, and this is, now when I advise people thinking about getting into M&A and buying businesses, especially Main Street businesses, stay in your lane. Why stay in your lane? Well, because I went early on in my journey. I went after a business that I had zero experience in. And I saw myself as somebody that has this very horizontal skill set that applies to any business. That's true. What I did though was I went and found the perfect potential partner, right? They already owned a business in that exact space. I'm bringing them in on this deal. I'm going to be the one that helps them grow and scale. They bring the industry expertise. It's a match made in heaven until it wasn't, right? I got the gift of a failed partnership very early on in my efforts. And I had to come to the realization that just because they have the industry experience I need doesn't necessarily mean that we have the values alignment or compatibility long term. And so, no surprise when it came time that I recognized, we were under LOI and all these things, that we were incompatible. I see abundance, right? So I'm not going to ever say like, you can't go after this. I'm like, may the best man win. And there's no surprise that they chose to go with the potential buyer that already had industry expertise and owned a company in the space. That's the one that got away. So partnerships, I think, are tremendously, like, people jump in and out of them rather haphazardly. They should be approached more like a marriage. That's one thing, one learning I would give. The second, actually, this is one that is more recent, but I got a call out of the blue when we were close to closing that, hey, there's pending litigation, right? We tried to settle out of court. We thought we were going to be able to. We're not able to. And so that is an indefinite holding pattern. And people don't realize that those kinds of things have a tremendous impact on a deal. Litigation, like divorce proceedings, those kinds of things. Gosh, death. There's a CPA firm that owns a company, right? That one of the partners died and they had to like reallocate everything, and they're like, quick, let's sell it before we have to do that again, right? Like there's all kinds of different things that can hang up a potential acquisition. But those are a few to highlight.
No, it's spot on. Again, spot on. Really good. It's good analysis. I have clients too, where I guess they have a situation where they started their business with the best of intentions, but to your point, they maybe weren't as intentional about equity and division of assets and things like that. And it's like, and now they're 2 or 3 years in, and like, how do you unravel? So I'm sure
Tremendously
you see some of
painful
that.
and complex.
Exactly, exactly. And then lawyers get involved, and now we're hurting feelings. I jumped right into it with your background, but I want you to tell my listeners, we talked about your ICP. Ideally is, businesses 1 to 50 million. What exactly do you do for these businesses? A little, commercial for what you do. What exactly you do for these guys?
Yep. My Working with me, again, just creates a business that is resilient, has maximum optionality, and then you probably are going to enjoy running it again, right? If you're thinking about selling, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where I actually talk them out of selling. I'm like, wait a second, why are we talking about selling your business? I think you just need to remove a few hats and you'll probably enjoy running your business again. So that's the kind of thing that I help people with. And it's very high level where I'm going to be deeply aware of the nuance of your business and the inner workings, who's who in the zoo, the key customers, the financials, the trends and all of that. But then what I'm bringing is, that sounding board and that validation that's ultimately going to save you a 6 month whoopsie, right? A decision where it's like, there's potential, talking to somebody recently, 5 different ways they could grow their business and that they're excited about. Okay, well, you can't go after all 5. So let's help figure out which one actually supports the growth trajectory that's going to get you to where you need to be and then save you running down any one of those other 4, which is going to cost you not just time and not just money, but 6 months of time minimum.
That's so true. So true. I'm a big practical advice guy. There's a company I work for. They had a mural on the wall in Amsterdam. It said 5% strategy, 95% execution. So whenever I work with clients, I try to talk about the high level, strategy and what we're trying to accomplish. But ultimately, it's like, well, what are we going to do today? What are, this is the Make the Adjustment podcast. What are the adjustments that owners, founders can make this week? They listen to the show on a Friday. It's Friday afternoon. They're going into the weekend, come back to work on Monday, probably work on the weekend too. But what are adjustments that they can make? Practical things that you've helped, again, as a majority, if you're talking to the majority of founders, owners, what are some of the adjustments they can make this week that could really improve some of their outcomes and get them going in the right direction?
The first thing you can do, and this is a 10-minute exercise, is take 7 minutes and think through and write down everything that only you can do in your business. That if you didn't show up tomorrow, that it just wouldn't get done, fall in the cracks.
Okay.
Once you have that list, pick one and either give it to somebody that's already on your team. Start thinking about who do you need to hire that can take the most of those things off your plate, or is there a system automation, agent that can take over that thing permanently and again save you minutes, maybe hours, but those things, those kinds of wins stack up, and then you can validate whether or not what Chris and David are telling you is true for you.
I mean, I take notes whenever I do these podcasts. And I just circled that one. I think I'm going to do that exercise. Because I mean, again, I keep talking about Dan Martell. I don't know how coaches you've hired in the past. We as coaches, I hired a coach a long time ago. Her name was Eileen Habelow. This is like 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And she's a coach. And I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to coach someday and all the things. And I asked her, I go, hey, do you have a coach? Because she's telling me how important it is to have a coach. She goes, Chris, I can't have you eat my dog food that I serve you without having a coach myself. Right. I have to eat the dog food of like, if I'm telling you a coach is important, I have to have a coach. So I remembered that. And I started my business 3 years ago. I had a coach in 2023, 2024. Now in 2025 and six, I hired Dan Martell. And so question number one is I'm curious if you have a coach. That's question number one. But number two, what are some of the things between, firms you worked with, boards you worked with, bosses you've had, coaches you've had? Like, I also want to know the silver bullet advice you've got from these people. So A, do you have a coach? And then B, just give me some of the silver bullet advice you've had in the past from the people that have influenced you.
Yep. Oh, Do I have a coach? Yes. I mean, we share Dan Martell as a coach. And I hired a coach right when I decided to stop building businesses for other people and build for myself. That coached me in M&A strategy and ultimately the nuts and bolts of what's involved in a transaction, because I'd experienced them internally, but there was always, other subject matter experts to lean on. And I needed to learn kind of some of the pitfalls and the do's and don'ts for myself. So those are two just in the last 3 years that I've invested in. Silver bullet advice. One of the best managers I ever had. I showed up. She took a chance on me, to be honest. Like, if you had looked at my resume, it was garbage. And there was no reason for her to have given it a second glance, but she did. And I wasn't a fit for the role she was interviewing for, but she saved it for some reason and called me back. She's like, I'm going to save this. I think we're going to have another opening and I'll call you. Well, she actually saved it and called me, which, like, you probably know never happens in real life. And she hired me. And so I wanted to prove you made the right choice. You made the right bet. I'm going to knock it out of the park. And I was doing all these things to earn her trust. And she stopped me day one. It's like, David, what are you doing? Like, I trust you explicitly right now from day one. And I will continue to trust you until you show yourself to be untrustworthy. And for somebody that had always had to prove myself and earn trust, that was such a gift. I felt a tremendous weight lifted from my shoulders, and I could just focus on execution. And so I have endeavored to give that gift to every single person going forward. And again, does it always work? No, but I think that it's such a better starting point for business owners. And it's not that you just trust blindly or, I trust and verify. There's a lot of, kind of underpinning logic there, but start with trust.
That's awesome. I mean, you're articulating what was been coined psychological safety. Just
Mm.
people being, not afraid to be honest, or like, hey, if you screwed up in week one, not having the fear of going to talk to your boss and be like, hey, I screwed up. Like most bosses and any founder on this call, they all hate surprises. So if we screw up, the last thing they want is you try to cover it up, fix it. Like, just tell them. Like, you're better if you have that level of trust and relationship. That's how great companies and teams work. Is like full honesty. To your point, I think that's a really good one. It's funny. I had a boss. Again, I keep talking. I'm that same guy. My dad's from Boston. My mom's from Kansas City. I'm more my mother than my father. Very trusting, a little naive, maybe to some degree. Um, my Bob once said, he goes, Chris, he goes, everybody you meet, you seem to give them an A until you prove them wrong. I give them an F until they prove me right. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's a way to go through life. Like it just seems like a little too pessimistic and negative. And Bob's incredibly successful, and he taught me a lot about things, and it's just his personality, his demeanor. But I think I'm the same way as your old boss, David. You probably grew up this way too. It's like, I want to trust people. I mean, there's also a study: 86% of human beings are well intentioned.
Mhm.
So if 86% of people are well intentioned, it's really just finding the 14% that aren't, because those are the ones you really can't trust, right? It's the
Mhm.
86% of people you should be able to trust in theory, like they're trying to do their job well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's funny.
Love that.
What Let me ask you another question, I guess, counterpoint to like the things that owners need to do when they think about exit. What are the things that they're told? What are like misnomers or just downright lies that people see on social media or just people think about growing and scaling companies that they're told about selling that just is wrong or untrue? Is there anything out there that you see a lot of and you're like, this is so wrong? Like these people don't get it. Just curious. How long do we have?
Yeah. One thing that I come back to all the time with, it comes back to value. Everybody wants to know, like, what's my business worth and how do I get the most value for my business when I sell? And it's this idea that an all cash offer is going to be the best offer you can get.
Okay.
And, people are surprised often when we start exploring exit options to discover that there are multiple kinds of buyers, multiple kinds of exits, including, like, yes, there's a clean cut, the ink dries on the purchase agreement. You're done. You're sailing off into the sunset. But there are so many others, staged exits, milestone based, transitions to internal team members, all kinds of different. So getting clear on what's important to you and understanding the landscape of options, because, there's people that sell and they get all cash, and they probably aren't keeping that much post close, right? Because of taxes and everything else. They also now don't have anything to do. They never stop to think about what am I going to actually do after I sell my business that I've spent decades investing myself in. It's literally knitted into the fabric of my identity. And now I wake up and don't have anything to do tomorrow. Like the number of people that show up to the signing table and don't sign because of that, right? Like those are things that everybody's like, just get cash, you're out, you're gone. And they're like, well, I played golf for a couple months and now what? So those are the kinds of things that are anecdotal advice that everybody's telling you. You should ask for cash. You should, sign it over and be done with it. Wipe your hands of it. I think that's really poor advice. And understanding, again, the landscape is going to make you less likely to make a decision you regret later.
Yeah. And again, I want people to hear that. I mean, you think about building a business, you're working 60, 70, 80 hours. It consumes you. Anybody who has owned a business knows this, David, you do too. I call it the 2 o'clock. Like you wake up at 2 o'clock and just the motor's running. You're like, oh my God, I got payroll this week. I got to do, like, you just can't stop thinking about it. Imagine going from that to you're on a boat in Montana and it's beautiful and it's sunny and you get some trout and it's awesome. And how many days can you do that? You think you can do it indefinitely. I would argue 10 days, about 10 days. You're like, all right, I'm done. I got to get back to work. Because I've done it. I sold and scaled a business about 3 or 4 years ago. I had a nice equity check. And I'm like, I'm just going to go play golf and see how many days I can play golf for until I get bored. And dude, it was about 10 or 12 days. I'm like, this is fun and everything. But I got to get back to work. Like this.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. I think people, it is a good point. They don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're a hard charger your whole life. You're just going to do nothing now. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And philosophically, I believe we're designed to work, right? And it doesn't mean that you're always grinding in front of a computer, but there are so many different interesting problems that you can continue to solve without the weight of the business resting on your shoulders. Get rid of that. Take a few hats off, right? Like one of my favorite brokers to work with has this super fortuitous cycle, right? Where they help business owners sell their business. And now they have like all this money and stuff. They become investors now in similar businesses and they will sit on the board, right? So I built and exited an HVAC company. Now I've got money. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'll put some in stocks and all these other things, but I'm going to invest in another person's acquisition of an HVAC company. And I'm going to sit on that board and advise them of all the pitfalls that I went through. And I just get to be involved in the business without carrying payroll on my shoulders, right? Like there are some really cool things you can do.
Yeah. More questions. And again, I could talk to you for hours and I want to be sensitive to time for your schedule and mine. But again, Make the Adjustment podcast. I have to ask you, what is one adjustment you've made in your personal or professional life in the last, say, 12 months that mattered more than you expected? An adjustment or change you made, and you were very intentional and cognitive about it, and you reflect back on it, you're like, wow, like that one thing really made a bigger difference than I thought. What would that be?
Well, I'm newer to investing in coaches. Is just since, diving into the deep end and deciding that I'm not going to keep building for other people. I'm going to build for myself, that I started investing in coaches. So that's one. Easy, simple. Everybody should have a coach at any level. You're going to benefit from it. Second, though, actually is investing in my own personal brand. I'm a very private person and posting every day on social media is highly uncomfortable for me. And I thought, our coach advised people to do it every day. And I thought that was busy work. Truly thought like, this is not the most important thing, Dan. Like for me and my business, you don't understand. And, within weeks, conversations like seller conversations I'm having, I go to start framing the conversation and sharing some context about me and they're waving me off. David, I saw you on social media. I know everything I need to know about you. What questions do you have about my business? Right?
You've already built the
Trust, credibility, context, right? I don't have to explain that. And so that was an early win, but it's continuing to build momentum. And so that's another easy one as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, the daily 5 non-negotiables, three posts a day. That's what I do. Stories, TikTok, YouTube.
Reels, yep.
Right. So then, and even this today, we're going to have some cool content you'll get from this today, which is great. So
love it.
I want to make sure listeners have a takeaway. So I want to know where they can find you, whether it's social, et cetera. And then I think you also said there was something that might be valuable for anybody to listen to the show as well today. So what are those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am most active on Instagram. You can find me at the David Hori. and I'm sure it'll be in the show notes as well. I'm also, on all the other channels, but I'm most active on Instagram. And then I have started, based on popular demand, delivering a free weekly webinar. It happens like clockwork every Thursday for business owners that just want to understand what's involved in selling your business. Because in speaking to them, it's clear that they have no idea. And so just talking about who you're going to be talking to, what's involved, some of the options, because what I found is having that awareness leads to, again, fewer decisions owners regret. And that's what I'm all about is helping them make better decisions for themselves.
That's amazing. And anybody listening, I will tune into a couple of those. I'll make sure I want to listen to that too. I'll be part of that.
Most
I'll
welcome.
definitely. That's great. Anything that we didn't talk about today, you're hoping that we would talk anything that taglines for you or just things that are important to you that I didn't get into today that you didn't have that I didn't mention that you wanted to talk about before.
I mean, this has been a tremendous conversation. I think if I were going to leave the listeners with, again, one parting thought is that uh, smart business owners don't plan to sell, they plan to be able to. And that's one of the biggest objections I get is like, well, I don't want to sell or I'm never going to sell. Great. You should still build your business to sell. Just again, understanding what makes a business sellable and drives value is going to ensure that you're building a business that's resilient and ultimately going to get you where you want to be.
Amazing. David, awesome. It's just gold. I mean, I literally had chills a couple times today because you're spot on. I'm 30 years into it, a little bit older than you, and you've probably had as much or more experience than I have at your younger age than me. And the advice is spot on. So I'm going to direct my customers to you. I'm going to, obviously your stuff will be in the show notes. I appreciate you being here. Anybody listening, do me a favor, take this podcast and forward it to two other friends, two other business owners, two other sales revenue generation people looking to grow and scale businesses. There was so much gold in this episode today. David, really appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time today. And I know our paths will cross again. I hope to collaborate with you in the future as well.
I can't wait, Chris. Thank you so much.
This was awesome. Thank you.